Back here on HQ, the NBA draft is going to be here before we know it, and there is a ton of talent in this freshman class. It's arguably the most talented freshman class that we've seen in a hot minute, decades, ever. Take your pick. And our very own Gary Parrish has put together his first NBA mock draft post-lottery. So this is what we have going on. AJ Dybantsa, if you saw it there, has emerged as the leader to go #1 overall, and that is exactly what the mock reflects, GP. So let's start at the top, and we're going to make our way down, starting with the Wizards, who, congratulations, they had that 14% chance. They got it there. They have AJ Dybantsa in this latest mock, and then you have Darryn Peterson going #2 to the Jazz.
And that should surprise nobody. I think most mock drafts, including anything you're going to see in the betting markets, are going to replicate that, with Dybantsa going 1 and Peterson going 2. There was a time not too long ago where most people had Darryn Peterson projected to go #1, but because of the way his one season at Kansas unfolded, with him constantly in and out of the lineup, at least early in the season, sometimes by his own decision, that has led to some front offices with some questions. Not questions that Peterson cannot resolve, but questions that have led to most people believing that at this point, anything other than Dybantsa having his name called first would be surprising. Then Peterson likely goes to Utah, but obviously that would be up in the air because, as you've noted, this is an incredible freshman class. And the only thing I'm certain of is that Dybantsa comes off the board before the Grizzlies pick at third, but he's the only one who is definite to come off the board before the Grizzlies pick at third, because the Jazz could obviously go in a variety of different directions, although at this moment it looks like the pick would be Darryn Peterson.
I want to go quickly back to your mock, if we can show it, because you mentioned the Grizzlies. That is a team that GP knows very well and has covered extensively. So we have Caleb Wilson and Cameron Boozer, who is also available for the picking for the Grizzlies. But GP, you have the Grizzlies taking Caleb Wilson over Cameron Boozer there, where Boozer ultimately would go to the Bulls. So just kind of walk us through that mindset there, where the Grizzlies would maybe pass up on Cameron Boozer and then go the other direction with that freshman phenom out of UNC.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm a fan of both, and I think both of these young men are going to have long and productive NBA careers where they make, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of millions of dollars. But with the third pick of the draft, and you're right, as noted, I live in the Memphis area. I am at FedEx Forum right now. This is a Grizzlies franchise that thought it had star power a few years ago, but ultimately that thing had fallen apart. A trio of Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane looked good on paper, did some nice things in the regular season, but never had the postseason success that anybody thought was on the way, at which point they move on from Desmond Bane, move on from Jaren Jackson. Ja Morant will be the next, presumably, to be moved out of the franchise. Simply put, this franchise needs a star, and I think Caleb Wilson is the best swing for a star you can make with the third pick in this draft. Cameron Boozer, terrific, reigning National Player of the Year. I have no doubt he will be a great NBA player, but I am trying to find a superstar with the third pick in this draft for the Grizzlies, and I think Caleb Wilson has the best opportunity to become that if he maximizes his potential.
I want to talk again about Cameron Boozer going to Chicago before we move on, because this is a franchise who has been so desperate for success for so long, and it feels like, you know, they're a play-in team time and time again. What kind of new energy in life could a player, a generational talent like Cameron Boozer, really inject into this roster as it's currently constructed, and even beyond that towards the future?
Again, he's terrific, and I don't say this as a hyperbolic thing to say. There are very few men who have ever entered the NBA draft as decorated as Cameron Boozer. A two-time Gatorade National High School Player of the Year, swept all of the College National Player of the Year awards, led Duke to a 35-3 record. He's won 2 gold medals with USA Basketball, won 3 Peach Jam championships while he was in high school, 4 Florida State championships while he was in high school. This young man has impacted winning in a positive way every step of the way. The only question about him at the NBA level is whether the stuff he does so well will translate into superstardom. In other words, he's a lot of things, but not Cameron Boozer, a great athlete, doesn't play above the rim. These are all of the reasons, if I'm the Grizzlies, I'm looking towards Caleb Wilson as opposed to Cameron Boozer, because Wilson is an extremely gifted athlete who you can see it translating to the NBA if it pops in a pretty easy way. With Boozer, there's some more questions about how great can he actually be? But the floor is very, very high. He seems to be wired the right way, seems to be a serious young man with no red flags that sometimes prospects carry with them into the draft. I'm very high on Cameron Boozer, just like one spot lower than most.
Okay, now let's round out the top 5 here, and we have the Clippers at 5, and in this latest mock, they're taking the SEC Player of the Year, the SEC Freshman of the Year as well, in Darius Acuff, who is absolutely phenomenal, has been so fun to watch over this past season. But what about his ceiling? How do you think he can transition for this Clippers team?
Well, you think of all of the great guards John Calipari has coached at Memphis and also at Kentucky, now at Arkansas, and none of them were ever this impactful in 1 year of college like Darius Acuff Jr. was. John Wall, terrific, #1 pick in the draft. Derrick Rose, terrific, #1 pick in the draft. Neither one was as awesome of a college player as Darius Acuff Jr. was in that 1 year with the Razorbacks. So this is a range in the draft where you do start to run into a string of lead guards, whether it's Darius Acuff Jr., Keaton Wagler, Kingston Flemings, Mikel Brown. But my favorite of the bunch is Acuff. First player to lead the SEC in both points per game and assists per game since Pete Maravich did it for LSU back in 1970. Think about all of the people who have played in that conference since then. Nobody had ever done what Acuff just did. He's a special, special talent. I wish he was a little taller, sure. I wish he was more of a positive defender, absolutely. But there's some real special star shot-making ability, shot-creating ability that's just hard to replicate. I can't promise you that he's going to be an NBA superstar, but I can promise you if you're looking for 6'3" guards that can be that, he very much looks the part.
Yeah, when we think of the phenomenal players that Coach Calipari has coached, and Darius Acuff has done things that they have never done in one season, it certainly says a lot. GP, hang tight. We have more to come. Picks 1 through 5 in this post-lottery NBA mock. In the books, we got more to talk about. But in the meantime, just check out the off-season dates to know the draft combine that kicks off this week. The NBA Finals, Game 1, that is June 3rd, and then the NBA Draft. That is what we're ultimately looking forward to here. The first round kicking off on June 23rd. We're going through the very latest of Gary Parrish's mock draft. This is the first post-lottery that we're going through as we look forward to the NBA Draft a little bit later in June. So we've already covered 1 through 5. We're going to pick things back up at 6, where we have the Nets going with a guard in Illinois' Keaton Wagler. So let's welcome back Gary Parrish so we can have this conversation here. GP, Keaton Wagler's story is so incredible and so fun because I don't know that there's another player who boosted their draft stock from just a singular run, and what a run it was. I don't want to downplay it at all, from Illinois, where we were talking about him maybe a year or so ago being like, I don't know, ranked the 100th plus prospect, and now we're talking about him going 6th to the Nets in a mock draft, which is absolutely remarkable.
Insane to be ranked 150th in your high school class and less than a year later be projected to comfortably go in the top 10 of an NBA draft, particularly at a time where we feel like we know everything and there are no secrets. Like somebody sent me a link the other day to a ranking of the best 5th grade basketball prospects in America. Now, that's obviously ridiculous, but it does exist. And so for Keaton Wagler to really be off of most people's radars to the extent that he was and make this type of jump, very, very unusual. He averaged about 18 points per game at Illinois, 6'6" jumbo guard, shot roughly 40% from 3, so he's reliable from the perimeter, great positional size, processes things extremely well. I know before somebody points it out that the Nets did take a lot of guards in last year's draft, but that should have very little to do with this year's draft. The truth is, I'm not sure they hit on any of them or that anybody on Brooklyn's roster right now has the potential / ceiling to be what I believe Keaton Wagler can become. If he's available at 6, this is an easy pick for me.
Okay, let's go to the Kings, who, man, it's been a tough season. They probably were not the luckiest team in the lottery here, but you have them going with Kingston Flemings out of Houston. How much does he address what this franchise needs? And there are a lot of needs, to be fair.
Well, yeah, he's a piece. All drafts are not created equal. This is not a situation where, like, once upon a time, you get the number 1 pick, you can draft Victor Wembanyama, and then whatever else you do, you've got a centerpiece forever. Maybe AJ Dybantsa is that. Darryn Peterson could be that. Kingston Flemings has the potential to be special, but I don't think you can draft anybody at number 7 in this draft, deep as the draft is, and, sell 10,000 season tickets the following morning, or change the trajectory of your franchise in any sort of meaningful way. But what Sacramento does need to do is fill up the roster with young, talented pieces that collectively can become something that fan base can be proud of again someday. It was just a few years ago where it looked like maybe they had tapped into something. Now it looks like they're just trying to shed whatever is left of that and move on to the new thing. Kingston Flemings at number 7 here would be an opportunity for them to start fresh and start moving in what is clearly a new direction.
Okay, so 1 through 7, we have that covered. Here at 8 is where things get a little interesting with Atlanta and GP. You have said this is where the draft really breaks.
It does for me, and I think if you start looking at other mock drafts and comparing and contrasting, what you'll find is that almost everybody has AJ Dybantsa at number 1, and then almost everybody has the next 6 players the same in some order. I might have Caleb Wilson ahead of Cameron Boozer. Others might have Boozer ahead of Wilson, but everybody's got them going in the top 7, along with the other 7 players that we have discussed so far. For me, this is where the draft starts to break a little bit, but it doesn't mean you can't find, all-star level guys. In fact, the guy I've got the Hawks selecting here is somebody who, does have that type of talent. Mikel Brown Jr. was a 5-star guard, went to Louisville, and had moments this season where he looked like he might be the best guard in the country. Truth is, he just didn't play that much, was limited to only 21 games because of a back issue. Is that going to be a thing moving forward? If so, we got problems. But if not, Atlanta would have an opportunity to grab somebody here who is a top 5-ish talent, all things considered. But the medicals are gonna tell a story. Either way, if you're the Hawks, you're feeling really good about this. You've got a playoff team already. You've got a star in Jalen Johnson already. Now you can add to that. And if Michael Brown's back is not a problem going forward, he certainly looks like somebody who's got the talent to be special in that league for a long time.
Yeah, Mikel Brown only playing, 21 games last season. But let's go back to the draft so we can pause and take a look at where we're at. So, of course, we had Dybantsa going number 1, Peterson going to the Jazz, Caleb Wilson going 3 to the Grizzlies, Cameron Boozer going off the board at 4 to the Chicago Bulls. Then we have Darius Acuff over to the Clippers, Keaton Wagler to the Nets, and then Kingston Flemings to the Kings. Mikel Brown Jr. over to Atlanta. And now we're getting interesting to the Mavs here, because it's not that long ago where we saw them just kind of do the impossible and get that number 1 overall pick, where they got Cooper Flagg. There's a new team president who's in the building saying, hey, we all got to move on. We can't keep crying about the whole Lucas situation. They're calling Cooper Flagg a little prince in waiting who they want to turn into a king. That is the verbiage there and the messaging. So who do you have? I know we just showed a GP, but dive into it for us, who they're taking here at number 9 to really build towards the future here in Dallas and just move past the whole Luka Doncic situation.
I've got the Mavericks with the 9th pick taking Brayden Burries out of Arizona. You might remember Koa Pete. I don't mean to bring this up, but in the opening game of the season, got 30 points against Florida, your alma mater. And at that moment, it looked like, okay, this is going to be the star of Arizona's freshman class. And in many ways, he was. But Brayden Burries went on to be Arizona's leading scorer this season. Was just terrific. Shot 49% from the field, 39% from 3 on 4.6 attempts per game. Remember, that's an Arizona team that didn't shoot a lot from the perimeter, but when they needed one, Burries could go get them one. He's a physical guard who can really knock down shots from the perimeter, and I think with the way basketball is played today, you can't have too many shooters around a player like a Cooper Flagg. If you are Dallas right now, you'll probably, as a fan of that franchise, never properly understand how somebody reached the point where they thought it was a good idea to trade in his prime, Luka Doncic. But what's done is done. Now you're just trying to move on with the next thing. And a core of Cooper Flagg and Brayden Burries, well, that's a good direction to go.
All right, so let's round out the top 10 here, where we have the Milwaukee Bucks, who are dealing with murmurs of, what they're going to do with their superstar in Giannis. So who knows what's going to happen there. But you have them taking Nate Ament out of Tennessee. Kind of an up and down season for him. But when we think of his upside, what can he bring to this organization that feels like they're just holding their breath, waiting to see what's going to happen with Giannis and not really, being in this unknown, which it feels like for almost a season now?
Well, I really do think what they plan to do with Giannis should impact and probably will impact what they do in this draft. In other words, if you're going to keep Giannis, I don't know that I select Nate Ament here. I might want to go get somebody a little more ready to contribute immediately. So if I'm staying in the Giannis business, I might go Yaxel Lendeborg out of Michigan. But all indications at this point are that the Bucks and Giannis are headed for a divorce, perhaps the nicest divorce ever, but a divorce still. And at that point, you are in Milwaukee rebuilding, and it's probably worth a roll of the dice on the biggest upside player who would be available at this point in this draft. And in my mind, that is Nate Ament. He's the typical long wing who's skilled and great positional size. In fairness, more of a prospect than a player. He wasn't competing for first-team All-American honors in his one season at Tennessee. He was good, but not consistently great. But when you look at it on film, you can at least see it. With so many of these players, you can put a ceiling on what you think they can be. And Ament is one of those guys where he's not quite there yet, but you can see it if you really, really drill down on it. And that's why he's worth a top 10 pick in this draft. You're betting on what he can become, not what he is. But the good news for Milwaukee is once you are moving on from Giannis Antetokounmpo, you're not in the win now business anymore. You've got time to let a young person develop.
All right, this next team is in the win now business, and you already mentioned Yaxel Lendeborg. So you have him going to the Golden State Warriors at 11. Yaxel's story is so remarkable when we think of UAB. Fast forward to national champion at Michigan, right? And this is a win now team. Steve Kerr's going to be there for a couple of years. We're assuming that means we still get, Draymond and Steph. So what does Yaxel Lendeborg fit, or what does he feel that is missing with this Golden State Warriors team based off of what we saw this past season?
Well, they just need players that can impact winning and do it immediately. Steph's not getting any younger, neither is Draymond. Whatever they're going to accomplish together with Steve Kerr as their coach needs to happen ASAP. And so for a different franchise, Yaxel's age, he's already 23, might be a turnoff when you can instead draft an 18 or a 19-year-old with years left to develop. But if you're the Warriors, it's not a turnoff at all, or at least it shouldn't be, because the 23 years old thing, that's a pro, not a con, when you're trying to win right now. So he's a big physical wing who, from a body standpoint, is going to look comfortable in the NBA from day one. And like you mentioned, his story is really terrific. Was at UAB, didn't even win the American Conference Player of the Year award 2 years ago. And then a year later, after that, he's the Big Ten Player of the Year and the best player on the team that won the national championship. And now he can be a player, a rotation piece for a Golden State Warriors franchise that's still trying to get healthy in the postseason and see if there's just a little bit left of that Steph and Draymond magic.
All right, so I know Dubs fans certainly hope so. So just to quickly recap, we pick things back up here with 9, where we had Brayden Burries going off the board, pairing him with Cooper Flagg. In Dallas, then we have Giannis Antetokounmpo's current squad as it stands right now, the Bucks, taking Nate Ament. Yaxel Lendeborg going off the board to Golden State at 11 as they are in win now mode. We're picking things back up at 12, where we're going back-to-back Wolverines GP with Aday Mara, where it just kind of seems a little unfair that OKC could get this sort of a talent with how loaded their roster is right now. They're about to sweep the Lakers, for God's sakes.
It does seem unfair. It's not. For the record, it's not. There are rules in place, and Oklahoma City is playing by them. It just seems that Sam Presti is better at playing by them than anybody else by a wide margin. This is a strategy pool for the Thunder here. As you know, with the way the CBA is now written, it becomes very expensive, if not impossible, to hold together any sort of championship level team. And that is going to be the case for Oklahoma City sooner rather than later. I think most people expect right now the Thunder are about to win a second straight championship, and then they might have to let their starting center, Isaiah Hartenstein, walk because it might be too expensive to keep him at a rate of around $30 million. So because of the second apron and other financial concerns, the Thunder might have to let a veteran important piece go, and then you look to the draft to try to replace him. And Aday Mara would check that box as a 7'3" center who anchored the best defense in college basketball this past season at Michigan, was basically a whatever player in 2 years at UCLA after being a five-star prospect coming out of Spain. But Dusty May at Michigan really tapped into something, and if he could now hand that off to Sam Presti in Oklahoma City, then the rich could get richer by actually shedding some salary. Hard to believe, I know, but that's how well this franchise has been set up.
It's certainly been a masterclass in how to draft and develop talent and all of that we're seeing with OKC. Two more teams to get to. Right now we're talking about the Miami Heat at 13, where we know that Spo can take a guy out of the G League and make him an all-star, it seems like, in 2 seasons or something, right? They're trying to maybe recreate some magic that they had at number 13, like 2019 vibes with Tyler Hero, but what do you have them doing here at 13?
I've got the Heat taking Labaron Philon out of Alabama. He's a lead guard who, in a different draft, would probably go in the top 10. And I want to be clear, he could go in the top 10 of this one. But in this mock, I've got him available at 13. Terrific in his sophomore season at Alabama. Played more on the ball than he did in the previous year, and he was better because of it. 22 points, 5 assists, 3.4 rebounds, and 1.4 steals per game. Shot above 50% from the field. He was right at 40% from three-point range on nearly 6.5 attempts per contest. A little bit of a concern that he's not a top-shelf athlete. He's very light, still weighs, I think, less than 190 pounds. That can be problematic in the NBA. But you're talking about a lead guard who can get his own shot, set up for other people, and also make a reliable jumper from the perimeter. This is a guy who's going to score points in the NBA, I think, for a long time.
All right, finally, we got to talk about the Hornets here, where it was an exciting season. It feels like the future is very bright for this franchise, and we have our third Michigan player that is going off the board here, GP.
I know. I don't know that in the preseason I would have told you that I thought Michigan had 3 top 15 picks. But after winning the national championship and on that run the Wolverines were on, it became clear that they weren't just winning with a bunch of good college players. They had real NBA talent, and Morez Johnson proved to be a part of that. He was, just like Aday Mara, a big piece of that defense that rated number 1 in the country at KenPom.com in adjusted defensive efficiency. He's a 6'9" physical specimen who can guard multiple positions. I'm hesitant to say 1 through 5, but it's something close to 1 through 5. And so you're right. That was a fun season in Charlotte this season. You got LaMelo Ball. You've got Kneppel. I can certainly understand why you might want to use a lottery pick to shore up things on the defensive end. And Mo Johnson, coming from a championship culture, I don't think that's a negative either, to just drop him right into that Charlotte franchise and see if they can be more of a factor than they were this season, next season in the East. All
right, there you have it. We just broke down GP's first mock draft post-lottery. Of course, AJ Dybantsa, out of all of these talented players, or talented freshmen, I should say, going off the board number 1. So, GP, before we let you go, when you think about it, all the talent we just broke down, especially in the top, 3, 4, 5 players, how excited are you for the future of the NBA and what we have to look forward to? There's been a lot of conversations like, oh, we don't have a face of the NBA anymore. But when you're seeing all of this talent, literally Cameron Boozer, Caleb Wilson, Darryn Peterson, AJ Dybantsa right there, even just at 1 through 4, how much hope does that give you for the future and excitement that lies ahead for the association?
Well, this has been described, I think, accurately as the best freshman class in the history of college basketball that has created one of the deepest drafts in the history of the NBA. So that's all good stuff, moving the sport in a proper direction. I'll just personalize it for you if you don't mind. As you noted, I live in Memphis. I'm in FedEx Forum right now. My little boys are Grizzlies fans, age 9 and 12. And their whole life, like literally their whole life, they have done nothing but ask me for Grizzly stuff, a Ja Morant jersey, Jaren Jackson jersey, Jaren Jackson Jr. shirt, a Desmond Bane whatever, posters on their walls, in their bathrooms. And for the first time ever, they don't have a favorite player. Jaren's been moved. Desmond Bane's been moved. Ja Morant is presumably on the way out. The other day, my 12-year-old asked me for a Con Knipple jersey. And I love Con Knipple, but it broke my heart. He needs a favorite Grizzly. And the hope here is with the third pick that he's going to have a new favorite player. Like, I remember when I was a sports fan around his age, like, I loved Darryl Strawberry. I loved Doc Gooden. I was a Mets fan from, you know, a very early age. And those guys always hold a special place, like, in my mind to this day, because they were my first favorite professional sports athletes. My younger sons have lost those people. And now hopefully they will get it back. And same thing in Washington, same thing in Chicago. A bunch of NBA franchises, fans of them, are going to have new favorite players later next month, and that's going to be a testament to how strong this draft class is.
Yeah, which is powerful stuff, right? Because there's so many young fans that are always watching and always looking up to these guys. You know what, GP? I feel like I can get some Desmond Bane Orlando Magic jerseys, and you guys can just be Magic fans. I can pull some strings, and we'll let you on board.
I think we are ride or die here in our hometown, but I don't know if I can suffer through another one like this past one. So if we get going down that path again, I might switch it up and come to Orlando.
Okay.
I'll text you and let you know.
Yeah, let me know. We're always open. We always need more voices to sing the song, and we would be happy to take you on board. GP, we certainly appreciate it. Always fun. Breaking down your latest mock, the first one post-lottery, and of course, a lot of fun stuff to look forward to at the draft in late June. But the conversation continues with Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. Of course, you can watch that latest episode right now by scanning that QR code on your screen.